The control number function is a lot like the control text in that it allows us to control a font, or in this case, a number. So to set this up, we're going to drag a group into the scene tree. We're going to go back into our server, grab a font, and drag this down as a subcontainer of the group. I'm going to go back into the built-ins, into the control folder, and drag my control number onto my font. And you can see when we did that how it automatically changed this text to a number. So I'm going to click on my control number function to go into the editor. First thing that we have is the field identifier. Since it is our first control function in this scene, I'm just going to leave the field ID at 1. We can give it a description here, and I'm just going to type in number. And we also have a minimum input, which is set to 0 by default. So if I only wanted the operator to be able to go down to 0, or let's say 1, we can type in a minimum number there. There's also a maximum input, which we can give them, set to 100 by default. We can change this to whatever we want as well. This will only allow them to go up to 50 now. There's an input value, which is 1 by default. It picked that up from our container. There's also a show verbatim button, which is off by default. With it off, it's not going to interpret or reformat this number at all. There's also a thousand separator. So once our numbers get into the thousands, we can use this thousand separator to separate that thousand mark. And we can change this to whatever we want. If we want a comma or a period, we could change that. We'll leave it at comma for now. There's a plus prefix. So if we wanted to always have a prefix in front of this, we could set a prefix here. See when I type in plus, how it adds that plus to the prefix. So there's also a minus prefix, which is set to a dash by default. So if we ever adjusted this number into a negative number, we could have this minus prefix show up when it's in the negative number. We also have a suffix here, which will add something to the end. So if you always wanted something to go at the end of it, we could type in there. So for instance, if I type in a $sign, you can see how that adds it to the end of the number. We also have a decimal point. So if we wanted to use the decimal point, we could. If not, we could take it away. We can add it. It's there by default. It's a period. So we can type that in and it shows us the decimal point. We also have decimal places. It's set to 2 by default. If I increase it, we'll increase the decimal places of this. If we want to decrease it and have 1 or 0 decimal places, we can do that as well. There's also a leading 0, which is on by default, and a 0 replacement. So if we had a leading 0 and we wanted to replace that leading 0 with any other character, we could type in that character in here. Now I'm going to save this and we're going to go into Trio and test this out. So we'll save this as control number and we'll hit OK. So once we're in Trio, we're going to import this scene here. I'm going to navigate to where I saved that scene, and here's my control number. I'm going to double click it to import it, and when I double click it within the scene here, it brings up our scene. And in the tab fields down here, we have our one option here for a variable. And when we come up to our editor here, we have the option to increase this. And you can see when we increase it, how it only goes up to 50 and it only goes down to 1. So this is from the minimum and maximum input that we set. And all the other variables that we set, the decimal places, thousand separator, and so forth, which will appear as we make changes to our scene.